Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 258 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know there are lots of choices out there, not only with podcasts, but other things to be doing. So I really do appreciate you joining me on today's podcast. I have a brilliant guest for you. Her name is Emma Lovell. She's a personal branding expert, and I know you are going to love this conversation. But if you are enjoying this conversation, I would love you to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me and let me know that you're a listener, because stats for podcasts are really, really quite bad, even though they take a lot of energy to do. So I love to get to know my listeners on all the platforms. So I would really appreciate you doing that. Of course, you can find all the links in the show notes. All the links that are mentioned on the podcast today, you can find them in the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/258. Before we get started with the amazing Emma, though, a couple of things. Firstly, did you get a chance to listen to last week's episode? Last week, I was pushing you to think about your Instagram grid just a little bit differently, especially if you're not an Instagram fan and you're like, I'm not on there much. I'm really ad hoc at the content that I post there, or I think I had an account maybe 5 years ago. Go back and have a listen to episode 257. It just might make you think a little bit differently when it comes to your Instagram grid. And of course, I wanted to give a shout out to this week's podcast sponsor. This week, we are sponsored by Thriday. So if you're tired of wasting time on financial admin, then Thriday could be the way to simplify your business. Thriday is a next-gen accounting platform that automatically reconciles your expenses, calculates your tax, and chases up overdue invoices. You can control it all from one place, and imagine how much time, effort, and energy that could actually save you. Business finance doesn't have to consume you, so in their words, become a Thridayer and live your best life. You can find it at all the W's, thriday.com.au, and Thriday is spelled Thriday. Thank you so much, Thriday, for sponsoring this week's podcast episode. And of course, if email marketing is one of those things on your to-do list for 2023, we are fast running out of time. So I've got my 4-week email marketing masterclass starting in September. Go and have a look at that and see if it is the program that you need to kick your email marketing butt in 2023, so that you have this stuff down pat by the time we get 4 weeks into, or I guess, into September and October, heading into the busy season, or perhaps the season where you like to wind down, depending on whether you're service based or retail based. You can, of course, find all the information, including prices and times and dates for the 4-week email marketing program at bit.ly/email masterclass with Jen, or like I said at the start, come to the show notes and find the link there. Today, as I mentioned, I have an amazing business friend and an awesome businesswoman, Emma Lovell from Lovely Communications. Emma is a coach, a speaker, a writer who specializes in personal branding. Her mission is to help women show up and shine so they can attract the work and life that they want. Emma gives women the tools and support to grow their business, become an authority, and build their own unique brand. She's the host of not one, but 2 podcasts. So Lovely Travels, and Lovely is spelt like her surname, so it has 2 L's at the end. And Live and Love Your Brand podcast, to which I was a guest on a few episodes ago. So make sure you go and check out those podcasts and hear more of Emma's amazingness over there. Wherever possible, she combines her passions for business and travel together, and she sees life as one big adventure. I can't wait for you to hear Emma on the podcast and our conversation about personal branding. So let's get into it. Here's Emma. Perfect. Emma, I'm stoked to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for giving up your time and coming for a chat.
Oh, my pleasure. The only challenge will be keeping it succinct because we could talk about everything for a long time.
Yeah, I think my guests might be a little bit used to that, but unfortunately, they don't get to hear the really great intakes and outtakes. But one of these days, that could be a whole podcast in itself, couldn't it? Just, the pre-conversations and the
Oh, the pre-chat's always
post-conversations.
good. And we're like, stop talking because this is the juice. Like, stop it. We can't. Or we always go, as we were talking about earlier, and everyone's like, what were you talking about earlier? And
Yeah, you weren't. You weren't. Anyway, for my amazing listener who might want to know more about you or may not have come across you, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
So I am Emma Lovell, and I'm a coach, speaker, and writer. I'm based on the Gold Coast in Queensland, and I've been
Sad.
running my business for 14 years. So started out in PR, marketing, social media, copywriting, all the things.
Yep.
Few too many things. If you asked me if I could do it, I could do it. So at my 10-year mark, I started to focus on personal brand. So I loved working with people and I loved messaging and communication. So basically, I just packaged up all of those skills and then helped individuals to promote who they were, to get clear on who they were, and then to be able to build the confidence to then talk about themselves and to build connections through being you, really. So I help people be themselves.
Ah, beautiful. I love that. And my audience is probably about to roll their eyes and go, I know Jen's going to say something like human to human marketing, and she's going to absolutely love this conversation, which is so true, my beautiful listener. I am going to love this conversation because I think from the outset, previous to running my marketing business, I had a retail business. I sold the retail business. I went into business with my mentor that I'd had into his marketing business. So I did all the social media talking and keynoting, and he did the other sort of marketing type of thing. And the one mistake that I made was I built his brand and not mine. I really
Yep.
concentrated on building up his brand through LinkedIn, through socials, all of this, and didn't really build my own. And then, of course, as history has it, that partnership kind of dissolved rather quickly, not bad, but just rather quickly for, different circumstances. And I found myself kind of starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Like people in my world knew me because we had a membership, but the outside world really didn't. And it was the number one mistake that I think that I made back then was I didn't build my brand alongside the business's brand, which now is why I guess I'm so passionate about building that personal brand. But is that what you see, that so many people sort of build their business and forget to build
Yeah.
their branding?
Yeah, and I'm never going to sit on my high horse or my ivory tower and go, I've got it nailed, because I get the reminder myself. And sometimes I go further the other way. So I've kind of had the opposite story of like people didn't necessarily always know what my business does, but they're like, go to Emma Lovell, she's awesome. So
Yeah.
I have a strong personal brand and that got me through, but I sometimes was relying so much on the referral as opposed to having, because I didn't really, I guess, feel like the business brand had strength, then I wasn't marketing the business. Like, I was operating more really as a freelancer and sole trader and contractor, which is great. It got me through the first 10 years of my business. I bought a house, I traveled the world. I'm fine. But it was like in terms of wanting to scale and wanting to leverage my time, then I had to have more of a business. But I use the example of Richard Branson as a really great, I know there's a bit big example to go with, but we know Richard Branson's businesses. We know his business brand, which is Virgin, and he's created Virgin Records. At one point he had Virgin Brides and Virgin, like a Coke. But we all know the airline. That's probably one of his most signature things. But Richard Branson, I'm using my hands, I know it's a podcast, but Richard Branson is over here as Richard Branson, the person, and Virgin, the brand, is over here. Like they're two separate things. However, we, associate them together and they rose together. We didn't know all about Richard Branson then, what's this little business over here? Or we didn't know all about Virgin and who's Richard Branson. They rose together. And so it's
Mhm.
like build your personal profile and your personal world and your personal connections of who you are at the same time as building that brand, and they can help each other. And what I say for Sir Richard, we're on first name basis, Sir Richard Branson, is that he infused the Virgin brand with his personality. So he
Mhm.
infused that brand. So we can sort of get those same elements of that same vibe, but you don't expect Richard Branson to turn up and fly the plane. He might rock up on the plane and
Mm.
visit, but we don't expect him to turn up on the plane. And I think that sometimes people worry about creating a personal brand because, or sorry, not creating, you have one, elevating or amplifying their personal brand because they worry that then people will only come to them and that they wouldn't go to their team or they wouldn't get to scale
Mm.
the business. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. That's just a messaging thing. Like, hi, I'm the business owner and here's my team. It's really
Mm.
quite a simple
Mhm.
message.
Yeah, yeah. The Richard Branson, or Sir Richard Branson, example is such a good one. And of course, at the moment, we would say something like Elon Musk and Twitter.
Mm,
You know, the brands are infused and not in a good way,
not in
like
a good way.
Virgin
No. So
and
it
Branson.
can go for a risk. And I've seen people do the risk of even organizations putting all their equity into a CEO. So I
Mm.
used to do some work with World Vision. For a long time, we knew the CEO, Tim Costello, was very, very well known, but he was synonymous with World Vision. And then when he
Mhm.
started, there was a time where he's going to exit. It's like the brand was too tied, the equity was too much with him as the spokesperson, as
Yeah.
the leader. And so, even though World Vision is a global brand, in Australia, it was really associated with him. So it was like needing to like re-establish the brand profile. And I've seen that happen with a colleague who owns his own business. Like he sold his business and they bought him with it.
Yeah.
They're like, we won't take it unless you continue to run it. And so like that's where it can be a risk. But then again, as I said, that's probably you haven't established so well. That's kind of boundaries work as well. It's like, no, I'm
Yes.
here and the brand is here. So that's why,
Yeah.
yes, we must continue to increase the business brand profile as well as understanding your personal brand profile. And you want to be credited with the business and associated with the business so that you have a, credibility and history, but also not so much so that that business can't survive without you.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Is it worth sort of backpedaling just a little bit to talk about what
Mm,
is a personal brand? Like for
probably.
anyone who's sort
Some
of
people are
listening
going,
and kind of like,
you're saying words and it's become a bit of a buzzword. So or buzz
yes.
phrase, and we're hearing about it. Simple, like I open my presentations like this. I'm like, your personal brand is you. Full
Yeah.
stop, end of. But what makes you, and that is your reputation, your skills, your personality, your experiences, all of those things, like your whole journey, which I find a lot of people cut out parts of their journey, all of the things, the steps that have got you to here today makes you who you are. And then what it is if we picture a Venn diagram, you have how the world sees you and how you see yourself. Personal brands in the middle. So, because a lot of people think it's only what other people think, or it's only like what I'm telling you. Well, what we need to see is an alignment of what I'm showing you. And I would hope that I'm showing up, I'm showing you that I'm passionate, I'm professional, I'm lovely. You should be experiencing that as well. If I'm telling you, you should be experiencing it. So it's making sure that our visual, our verbal, our vocal, so like our words, our tone, and our presence all align with what the message that we're sharing. And so I find that it's one way or the other. Some people don't believe it about themselves. So other people would tell them how awesome they are and how they see them. They see them as an expert and they're incredible. They don't believe it about themselves. So then they're not able to show up that way. Or you think you're coming across and telling everybody all this stuff and that everybody knows what you're known for, but your audience doesn't have a clue because you haven't told them. And basically, if you go, I don't need a personal brand, or I'm not going to work on it, I'm not worried about it, I'm sorry, but your audience will decide for you. They're just going to tell the story for you. So I'd rather be in control of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a great point. You were talking before about, like your personal brand being the same, same tone, the way you show up, all of that. One problem that I see is people showing up differently on, let's take social media platforms, for
Mm.
instance, on different platforms, or the person that I see on Instagram when I go to their website, there's a real disconnect as to the way they talk or the way I'm reading or the messaging and things like that, which then I guess, confused buyers don't buy. And, if people, I guess it takes away an element of trust if their
Trust.
brand isn't
Mm.
succinct everywhere. What do you see, and what do you think, people who are listening might be able to do about something like that? They feel that there is a brand disconnect if you look over all of their marketing or all of their channels.
Well, yeah, first and foremost, like one of the first steps I take with any of my clients is a brand audit. And basically, that's just go and look at what you've got out there. Like, we can't know where we're going if we don't know where we are. And
Mm.
sometimes you might be doing better than you think. Like, I have people
Mhm.
like, I don't shop at all, I don't do this. And when you actually go for a little look, you're actually doing quite well, but maybe it's not as, you're not saying, say I say I'm a speaker, but then I have nothing to demonstrate that I'm a speaker. It's like, well, then I need to put up more photos of me with a microphone. If people
Yes.
go, like, hello, I've got a giant microphone, I'm a speaker. If you don't tell people that, they wouldn't know. But I actually have a free resource which I'm happy to give your audience, Jen.
Yeah,
It's a brand
please.
audit. It's a
Yeah.
brand audit checklist. And it's like, Google yourself, look at your socials, look at I even get people to look in their inbox and look at how people are like, I don't have leads, I don't have sales. How proactive are you being? Are you just sitting there waiting, or are you actually reaching out? Does your email signature say how to contact you and have your details? Does it have a photo of you, which you can now do? Even the photo, they're like, your photo is 5 years old, or your photo is different on these 4 different channels. And obviously, I run personal brand photo shoots, and it's so important that what you see, this image that you see, is what you then get to experience in person. And the photographer that I partner with, Jade, the reason we connected so well is because the way we show up online is the way that we show up in person. And so we had this instant rapport because we had been following one another. And so what we saw is what we get. And when people meet us, they're like, oh, you're just like I thought you'd be. And I'm like, good. What you'll only get is maybe a dialed up or dialed down version. Like, I'm not going to speak on stage the way that I'm going to speak in a small room with you, but you're still going to get the same vibe and energy of me. So we're looking for consistency there. And if you're not being consistent there and you're trying to show up on social media as like this dancing Barbie person, but you're actually like a bookworm, like just very extreme example, it's going to be really exhausting to maintain that. So I'd much rather you come across as your bookworm and talk about all of that stuff that you love, because then people who are also bookworms will connect with you, and you will have that deeper, more trusting connection. Yeah. So, but as you said, the trust would really be broken. But on the positive side, if you do show more truthfully who you are and have a visual presence, a visual digital presence that represents you, then you will build that trust a lot quicker with people and that depth of connection quicker. And it does a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, I agree. I try, and I use the word try. I do it really well on LinkedIn, but I don't do it so well on Instagram. I think it's, partly the platform, partly that I keep telling myself that I don't do it very well, and maybe I just should. But if someone connects with me on Instagram, I'll go and try and send them a little message through DMs. Thanks so much for connecting. Hope you're having a really great day. La, la, la. Maybe there's something in their feed that sort of sticks out. And quite often it's kind of like, hey, thanks so much for connecting, because I've got no idea what their name is. Like, I can't find their name anywhere. I can't find it in their about section of their website, and I can't find it on their Instagram, in their bio, or in their posts. And every now and then I get a little bit cheeky and I'm like, hey, and I'm sorry I have to say that because I don't actually know what your name is because I can't see it anywhere. And often they'll come back and they're horrified. They're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that my name wasn't anywhere. And I don't think that it's purpose. Like, I don't think they really mean it. I think they just assume that,
Yeah, that's
everyone
obvious.
knows who I am.
People have been to your website. Like, you actually have to assume that people know nothing. Like, that's what I said with the email signature. I know it's coming from your email, but if you're reminded, because you might be part of a group email, and I've had in the past where people are like, reached out to me and they've said, we're on this chain, but you're the only one who has contact details, so I had to contact you. I was like, great, but it has all my other channels. And then if you go to those channels, you have to assume that they haven't they haven't seen you before anywhere. So I'm going to introduce myself at the top of that page. I'm going to introduce myself at the top of my Facebook, even in my LinkedIn bio. And I did a masterclass for a writers group, and I said, in your bio, you can choose third person or first person, but I would say your name at the top of your bio. I know that it says LinkedIn, you come to Emma Lovell's page, but you've come down a little way. My bio says, hi, I'm Emma Lovell, or nice to see you, I'm Emma Lovell, or Emma Lovell is, if you're going to do third person. But I just use your name. And when you introduce yourself, be kind to the person you're talking to, and don't assume they know who you are, and say, oh, hey, Jen, it's Emma Lovell. Hi, Jen, Emma Lovell. We met another time. Then you're going to go, oh, Emma.
Yeah, just don't rock up and go, what do you mean you don't know who I am? Seriously.
Yeah. Yes. Come here. I will tell you to shamelessly, like, I write it on my wall. Like, your name is important. It's important to you, and it's to say it out loud. I think and people say a really great tip I heard was when you go to conferences or events or a thing where they ask for questions, you can actually stand out in the room by being one of the first to ask a question. And when you ask that question, say your name.
Yeah.
So, hi, Jen, loving the presentation. I'm Emma Lovell, and I have a question for you. Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Emma Lovell. My question is, and someone comes up later and goes, oh, Emma, right? I like your question.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that tip. So for my listener who might be nodding along going, this is really great, I really should show up more often. I hear Jen talk about human marketing and showing up all the time, but you were talking before about, perhaps people who don't believe in themselves or don't believe in this whole personal branding. What's the one piece of advice or the biggest piece of advice you could give someone who's really just wants to show up, I guess, and understands the value in showing up, but just can't?
Yeah, and I think this where there's two ideas here, but one is, maybe it's just finding the platform that works for you. I do feel like we need to have a digital presence, but this is where things like photos can come in so handy. It's like if video or talking and the thought of being on this podcast is like hurting your soul, photos could do a lot of the work for you. So having photos that truly reflect you now would be a really great way to be able to just to show up without having to do a video or a speaking or whatever. But people do want to work with people. I don't want to work with a logo, and then you do need that trust factor. So, but behind that is really a confidence thing, isn't it? So one of the ways that a really lovely little confidence booster is to just kind of do, again, it's like an audit with your audience. And I love this exercise. So it's the 3 words exercise. So you go to 5 people in your network. That could be, I try and choose different people. So one from your family, one a friend, one work, one colleague or a client, and ask them without too much, babble. If you were to introduce me to somebody who'd never met me, what are the 3 words you'd use to describe me? And then get them to send that back. And so often I find that these words, people can't believe that people have such a high opinion of them or see them in that light that they don't see themselves. And they can see all these words and go, yeah, oh, wow, that's really lovely. And that's so nice. And then I go, okay, now you say them. You say, I am intelligent. I am an expert. I am knowledgeable. I am beautiful. I am creative. I am fun. And they can't. So it's like, you're actually not believing that about yourself. Why would the audience believe it if you don't? So go and get some data, your market research, go and get some data and understand that the world's already seeing you in a much higher light than you think. So once you get that, I hope that would build your confidence a bit to go, yeah, you don't have to go and write those words. These are like your little arsenal to go, yeah, it's okay to show up because so-and-so said that I'm an expert, or so-and-so said, and you might just need that little help from them until you can believe it yourself.
Yeah. I think that's really good. There is a reason why when we're at school, the teachers would do that exercise where everyone had to write something nice about every person in the class and that sort of thing. And it's the same idea, to not only build confidence, but to see how people think of you in a different light, things that you perhaps didn't realize, people were taking notice of or thinking about you.
And I have a client who she has bright pink hair and has this really fun, funky, like wears funky clothes, and she's got this course, and me and another colleague described her as a rebel, and she's like, this is so weird. Like, why do you call me a rebel? Like, I'm such a rule follower. I'm like, you have freaking pink hair and tattoos, like, and you started a business as an entrepreneur that's rebellious. So your attitude is, and maybe it's not the way you associate with a rebel, but I was like, yeah, I'm like, you're a bit of a badass. And she's like, no, I'm like the rules follower. So, but she was so shocked by that impression she was giving. And I was like, you can either try to break that, or you can play into it and go, yeah, I'm out there. Yeah, I'm doing things different. If you want to do things different, come and do it with me. Like, it would be attracting people that she's showing up that way.
Yeah. I remember listening to a podcast quite some years ago now, from Amy Porterfield, who has Online Marketing Made Easy, I think is her podcast. And she was talking about a photo shoot that she was doing, and it was a bit of a, how to show up for your photo shoot and how to get things right and that sort of thing. And then she actually disclosed on that podcast that she had a couple of nips of, some whiskey just to calm her nerves down. And I thought, whoa, if someone like Amy Porterfield, needs to calm her nerves before a photo shoot, there's something in that for all of us. Do what you have to do. For her, it was, a couple of nips of whiskey or whatever to calm her nerves in order for her to show up the way she wanted to in this particular photo shoot. And I just thought that is probably the thing that I think would hold people back the most, is that comparison-itis, or however, that whole, I can't be like them, they show up, they do this. And I often say to people, choose someone that you would like to show up like, and scroll back on Instagram 2 or 3 years, if you can, and see how were they showing up 2 or 3 years ago. Because I guarantee you it wouldn't be near as polished and amazing as what you're seeing them today.
Don't compare your day one with someone's day 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. I mean, like I said, I've been in business 14 years. I can show you a presentation I did from 10 years ago when it was like, to do the promotion, she was like, just do a video for me. And I used like a colored filter, and like they had this like thing. It was like, I don't even know what the program was at the time, but it was like, maybe it was iMovie or something. I was like, oh, this is fun. I can make 4 squares of myself. I could do a promo like that. I'm like, oh. And then Instagram came back and I was like, I was ahead of the time. These filters, see, that's cool. That was cool 10 years ago. But I'm like, so, but I don't know, whatever. I was doing a speaking gig and I was promoting it. And it's like, I don't feel shame about that. I'm just like, oh, how funny. Like, how funny. I did it. I wouldn't do that now. Maybe I would. Don't know.
Maybe you would. It just wouldn't. That's right. You could use that now.
Maybe you didn't have the funds, like I think as well, sometimes people talk about, like, they think of say photo shoots or any sort of service, like getting someone to help you with social media or your marketing, like that's only for those people. That's only, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of money. But there are service providers for all different budgets and for all different levels. And when my first photo shoots, I mean, a big level up for me was paying for photo shoots, because I used to do contra. So writers have that lovely skill of words that sometimes visual people lack. And so I had contra deals with some photographers 10 years ago. So I was getting professional photos and had amazing images. I knew they were valuable, but at the time I wouldn't have thought to pay for it. But we made this arrangement, and then now where I'm at, I'm like, no, I want to elevate, and I want to have that. So I wanted to pay for a photographer, and I wanted to have my time with the photographer, and make sure I got across what I was trying to say. And I was like, in order to do that, I had to invest that time and have that clear understanding. But as long as the value exchange is clear, there's ways that you can do those things. I don't think that everything has to be so prohibitive in terms of creating the brand presence. And a lot of people talk about that rough and ready as well. Not everyone's attracted to the super polished as well.
Yes.
Like super polished, super aesthetic feeds, it is quite intimidating for some people. So they like that you do a selfie here or there, or that you just jumped in the car and did your video because that's all the time you had. And I think there's a lot of mums in business who would really appreciate and connect with that. And then when somebody does start elevating and start to kind of want to, I don't know, mature their brand, they lose those connections because they're like, oh, I don't connect with that sort of more
Yeah.
chic, and that's okay.
Mm.
That's what,
Yeah.
a real point is, like, not everyone's going to like you. You don't like everyone else. Like, you don't like
I know.
everyone.
That's really hard, isn't it?
But,
That's really hard to
I'm like,
reconcile.
thank you. When somebody doesn't, if somebody comes along and they're like, oh, you're too, I mean, today I'm wearing a hot pink top, I'm wearing pink nails, I've got a rainbow thing behind me, I wear sequins often. If you don't like that, I am not for you. But I'm not going to
Yeah.
stop doing all that so that you feel
Mm.
more comfortable. I would just say, go and find someone else. I know someone else who's working in personal branding, who's very polished, very chic, wears, blazers more, and kind of has like that magazine vibe. And I'm like, I think it's fantastic, but
Yeah.
maybe they're more for you. Or
Mm.
so maybe you want someone who's more sweary and more like, yeah, I don't know, more like rebellious, and I'm more like Barbie. So, it's like this whole Oppenheimer Barbie, but it's like, well, you could have both. Just
Yeah.
pick your vibe and go with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think, well, that's the laws of attraction, isn't it? You are attracted to the people, that you're attracted to, whether that's in a business sense or not. But, you want to do business with people, that have the same morals and values as you, and that comes out through your personality and personal branding. Just flick the switch just a little bit, and maybe the answer to this question is really short and sharp, but is there any downside to building a personal brand alongside a business brand?
Like I said before, the only risk is, like, I think people worry about wanting to sell the business in the future, or
Mm.
wanting to, bring in more team members, and it's so reliant upon them. But as I
Mm.
said, there's a messaging element there. And it's just that, again, we don't expect Richard Branson to fly the plane or to do the
Yeah.
PR or to, I don't know, he's not in accounts. Like, you don't go, so Richard Branson, I want a refund on my flight. Like, that's, people understand. And if they don't understand, where we could see it play out badly is, like, say, Ellen DeGeneres, and she had that whole kind personal brand thing, and she came out and said, don't ever take on a brand of being kind, because if you're ever not
Not
kind or
kind.
human,
Yeah.
then it gets shut down. And whether it was her or the culture, and it could have been the team, but then her name's on the door, and it's the Ellen
Mm.
show. So, and maybe she was unkind, maybe she's human. I appreciated that speech. People like her or don't. I thought that was a great response. And she's like, I didn't even call myself. You all said I was the kindest person. Like, I didn't choose this. But I think she does show up with a lot of kindness. But there's also times where, I'm sure you'll get me, some days I'm not in a very lovely mood. But
Mhm.
generally, I aspire to be lovely. That is the brand I try to, and I think with your personal brand, it's aspirational. Like, don't go with what the reality is. It's like your values aspirational. We're
Mhm.
trying to live up to those values. And there are times where we're not quite there, but don't
Mhm.
then bring the bar down so much. Like, aspire to be the best version of you that you can be. And that's what we're trying to show up with.
Mm.
Went
Yeah.
off course a bit, but
No, no, I think that's a really great answer, because I think, there is it, and for me, I would say it's a bit of work as well, trying
Mm.
to build a personal brand alongside a business, and we only have so many hours in the day, but I think it's recognizing the power of having that personal brand and what that personal brand can do for your business, could do for your leads, can do for your profits. Once you start
Yeah.
to recognize all that, it becomes something you're willing, I guess, to invest that time and energy into, even though you're kind of like, oh, I only have a certain amount of time, to run my business. There's only a certain
Mm.
amount of hours in the day. But I think it's seeing the power of it, I guess, flicks that switch for you.
Well, maybe we haven't made the connection there as well, in terms of, like, how that benefits you. So, like I
Mm.
said before, I think there was so much strength in my personal brand, but maybe not so much strength in my business, like my business delivery and offering. And I'll announce something here that will be announced by the time this episode comes out, but I'm actually rebranding, I put inverted commas, or shifting my brand. I'm going to start working as Emma Lovell, because my business is Lovely Communications, but it no longer makes sense, because Lovely
Mm.
Communications doesn't deliver the services. Lovely Communications doesn't create these offerings. Emma Lovell does. And so
Yes.
what I offer and the way I work, which is coaching, I offer personal brand photo shoots, I offer retreats, I do training on retreats. I speak, that all comes from me and from under my brand banner. And it makes it a lot easier if I'm at the top of the page or if my name's on the door to then show off those offerings, as opposed to when I ran a communications business that offered the services of PR, marketing, copywriting, and social media. So that's the evolution I've gone on. Now, what's always been great for me is through all of this evolving of my business is that, as I said, people know that Emma Lovell, they know me and they know whatever I'm doing, I can deliver. So that's really helped me. And so if you are to go through a shift or you decide you no longer want to deliver the service that you deliver, then having that people know your reputation, your skills, your experience, that you're just a good person or like that you're trustworthy, then no matter what you're offering, then you can be referred or recommended. The way that you do this is like networking. So we talked before about Jen and I actually met in person at a conference, seen each other online, but to actually meet in person, it kind of solidified that connection and then made it easier to arrange something like a podcast. So me just reaching out to Jen on an email or on an Instagram may not have been I might not have been the right fit, but because we met in person, it sort of got the vibe. It was like, oh, sure, yeah, we could do a podcast together, So yeah. I think that's where then the personal bit comes across. Whereas if I had gone up to Jen and gone, lovely communications, and we could do this and we can do that, and we should have lovely communications on the podcast, you'd be like, cool, like, okay.
One day, give me a call.
Yeah, just send me a proposal on that. If someone says that, then it's not going to happen. But also, I would just say that, I don't know, for me, the whole, it's not what you know, it's who you know, has been proven throughout my career, and not in a nepotism, not in a like, boys club kind of way. It's just that, of course, if you're asking me for a marketing expert, I'm going to tell you about Jen over the 800 other people I don't know. A copywriter, who am I going to recommend? I know 5 copywriters. There's thousands of copywriters, but I'm going to recommend the ones that I know. So that's where the personal brand and knowing them on that level, I would then recommend their services.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is just that was a really great way to tie up all of what we've spoken about today. Around the whole personal branding. Clearly, for my poor listener, she realizes, or he realizes, or they realize right now that Jen and Emma certainly are on the same page as far as this go, and we could talk forever about personal branding. For my audience, or for my listener who's tuning in, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way to reach out if they want to talk a little bit more to you about all your amazing services that you offer?
Absolutely. So my website's going to change. So the name will change. Just in case I get the URL wrong, I might not announce it. So, but you can hopefully. I'd say you can Google me, but Emma Lovell's quite a popular name. So I'm going to say go to LinkedIn, Emma Lovell. I have big blonde hair. I'll probably be wearing something bright, so you'll usually know that. My bio is coach, speaker, writer. So LinkedIn, Emma Lovell. And on Instagram, at the moment, I'm Lovely Comms, but that will be moving to Emma Lovell. So hopefully you'll be able to see if you watch this, if you find the tile for this episode, my photo, apparently I'm the most like my photo of anyone, so you'll be able to recognize the photo. But Emma Lovell on LinkedIn would be the best way to connect, and we can also pop in the show notes, but you're by all means welcome to email me as well, emma@lovelycommunications.com for now. Beautiful.
And you've got a podcast. If they want to hear more of our dulcet tones or more of your dulcet tones, what's the name of your podcast?
It's going to change. So it's currently Live and Love Your Brand, but it's going to be the Emma Lovell Show. And the shift should be happening before this one comes out. So if in doubt, Live and Love Your Brand or the Emma Lovell Show.
If in doubt, check the show notes. They will definitely
We'll
be,
update.
all the
A lot
links will
of
be in there. But that's so exciting. That's such an exciting time for you. And yeah, real proof of what we're talking about here today around that personal branding. But I think also growth in business. I'm very much the same. 5 years ago when I started this business, I didn't want it to be about me. That's why Social Media and Marketing Australia exists. But as we get further into it, my Instagram's changed, my Facebook's changed. My website will probably start to change in the next 6 months, rebranding into Jen Donovan for exactly what you said. Jen Donovan
Yay.
is the person who picks up the phone and answers the email and delivers the thing. Yeah, so why shouldn't it be that? So I think it's the evolution of business. If you're listening to this going, no way, nothing is ever no way. It's the evolution of the way you think and what you see and, your business as it goes through the years.
It's maturing, elevating, acclimatizing. I got told this guidance about 4 years ago when I was
Yeah.
working with a business coach, and I just wasn't ready. And then I had this epiphany in November where I was ready.
Yeah.
So it is, it's a growth and an evolution, and it's also okay. Like, I'm not, the reason I'm talking about it is because I don't want it to be like this switch over. All of a sudden, you see everything like this. People will notice that this change has been coming, and like it will just. I don't care about a big reveal because it's like I've been me all along. It's just that the visuals you see and some of the messaging you see will shift, but I've always been me. So that's why I say a brand shift as opposed to a rebrand, because I'm me.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to see your
Lovely.
journey too.
Yeah, no, thank you. But this has been such a great chat. Thank you so much for giving so freely and talking so much about this. I think it's a really great topic and one that's not going to go away. And I'm sure we will both continue to talk about, personal brand and that sort of thing. But thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Jen.
I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I thought it was a great chat. The link to the audit that Emma mentioned towards the start, the brand audit checklist, it is actually in the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/258. Or if you're connected with Emma on Instagram at lovelycoms, then just go to her link in her Instagram bio and you will find it there as well. But could be a really cool thing to do a bit of a brand audit on your business, especially if you haven't done one for a little while. And of course, don't do a me and don't forget to build your own personal brand whilst building your business's brand. Like I said at the start, it's probably one of the biggest regrets I have in the past business that I've had is not growing my own personal brand. And it was a really hard lesson because it kind of made me start 12 months behind where I was hoping to start when I went out on my own. And it's also one of the reasons why I talk so passionately now about human to human marketing, because you don't want to do a Jen, you want to grow these things together so that you have an amazing business model and also your own personal brand as well. So, I hope that message has run through as you've listened to Emma and my conversation today. If you'd like to continue the chat, then you can always come and join the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group over on Facebook. I'd love to see you over there if you're not in that community already. But that's it. That's it for another episode. That's it for episode 258. If you loved this episode and found it valuable, please go and check out Emma's podcast and maybe leave her a rating and a review when you've listened to some of those. And I would love for you to leave me a rating and a review as well, because one of my goals is to reach more people with this podcast this year, and you can help me achieve that by leaving a review. Thank you so much in advance. I will see you next week on the podcast for episode 259. The year is just flying. And thanks, of course, to Thriday, the next gen accounting platform that automatically reconciles your expenses, calculates your tax, and chases up overdue invoices, for being the podcast sponsor this week. And of course, don't forget about my email marketing masterclass. If you can't find the link, come to the show notes or go to my website and you'll find it on the homepage there. But in the meantime, if we aren't hanging out on social, let's get social on social. You find me on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are.
would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.